Hello. Okay. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Baskaran from Kumbakonam. I am an organic farmer and involved in farming for more than 30 years. Fine. Today, I would like to speak on the topic of bridging farmers and farming at the globalization context. Because whatever farmer is doing is farming. There is nothing new in that when apparently when we look at the topic headlines. But what is happening now, what has happened to agriculture in the last 2-3 decades, and we are heading towards which direction is the thing we should be bothered about, or we should focus our attention towards that. As a small introduction to our topic, if you see, India being an agricultural country, so far it is by and large produced for the self-consumption only, for the Indian domestic market only. It has been being a tropical country, all kinds of agricultural products are produced here, and it is consumed by the local people. So our agriculture is not aimed at the export market, because our domestic market itself is huge and variable. So that is why all the farmers have been involved in the local production only for the local market. That is one thing. And another thing, by and large, small and medium farmers are there in our agriculture system. That essentially contributes to the equitable distribution of income, because since many of the farmers are agriculturists and the majority of the population are agriculture-based operations, by and large, the food distribution system is supporting their main profession. That is why that much acute poverty is not faced by the Indian community. However, we have a ration system and giving to the some marginal people who are not able to afford their food. That is one thing. But when we look at the progress of agriculture in the post-independence scenario, 5-year plans gave more importance to agriculture economy, and it was in progress. Then a green revolution was introduced because of the shortage of food production, because of the famine in 1960s. So what happened? These things aggravated the existing situation, and they introduced hybrid varieties, chemical fertilizers, and there is a change in pattern of agricultural production, which resulted in large quantities of production, leading to the self-sufficiency in food production for the domestic market. But as a side effect, the farming method has been changed from conventional traditional method of farming to chemical-based, pesticide-based, high-yielding variety-based production. So what happened? Consciously, our method of production was changed from traditional method of farming to chemical-based, pesticide-based production that depleted the fertility of the soil, and it gradually increased the cost of production of the farmers. That happened one side. And another thing, it was heading towards monocrop cultivation. Predominantly, rice and wheat became the major production of the Indian agriculture. Previously, all kinds of agricultural commodities were produced: pulses, oilseeds, millets, fruits, timber, herbal products, all kinds of agricultural producers were produced in the conventional traditional farming method, because according to the season, according to the area, according to the terrain, according to the local knowledge of the farmers, all kinds of agricultural commodities were produced, and seeds were in their possession. That was the main reason there was a diversity in the agricultural produce. But this was changed from the high-yielding variety, introduction of the high-yielding variety, and gradually native seeds was slowly vanished. That is why the farming method slowly changed to chemical-based farming. Moreover, mechanization was introduced. That changed to the introduction of the tractors, harvesters, weeders, all kinds of mechanized farming was introduced. That also changed the skill of the farming community. Earlier, it was human labor-based and animal power-based agriculture, and because of the introduction of modernization and mechanization, the skill of the agricultural laborers vanished. So only those who are thorough with the modern technologies, chemical usages, and high-yielding varieties are capable of doing the agriculture. The conventional knowledge was slowly dying down. That was the method of change that took place in the Indian agriculture in the last 2-3 decades. Coupled with that, climatic change also forced the farmers to change their method of production, because climatic change was erratic rainfalls, frequent occurrences of famine, flooding conditions, all these things was a threat to the farmers. So whatever things were produced by the farmers, it was challenged by the natural forces. And by and large, now farmers faced acute income problem or failure in returns due to these calamities. So as a consequence to these calamities, agriculture insurance was introduced. Agriculture, it was some kind of relief to the farmers. So it is still, the improvement has to be done into the agricultural insurance schemes, because it covers the number of items covered and the season covered is limited. So still farmers face some problem whenever the agricultural failure is happened due to calamities or some other reasons. This is how the Indian farming is getting changed towards a new dimension. This is under these circumstances, globalization took place in the 90s, and then when we had to sign the Global World Treaty Agreement for the globalization of Indian agriculture or Indian economy, and Indian farmers were compelled to accept the changing scenario of the global market. But until then, farmers were confined to the Indian domestic market. They are not aware of the demand from the global market for agricultural produce. So that was the condition of the farmers. To make the farmers move towards the export market, organizational change had to be introduced. That is why farmer producer companies were introduced, because until then, still the farmers are by and large unorganized sector. So there is no procedure to regularize the farming method or bringing the farmers into a organized form. So unorganized sector could not be brought under the exporting or export-oriented business. So what happened? Government initiated farmer producer companies and make the farmers to combine themselves in small groups and then register themselves as farmer producer companies. For each farmer producer company is country is spending approximately 40 to 45 lakhs for the promotion of a company. This is essential to convert the farmers to a farming to a organized sector. But it was initiated in 2002, and the experts submitted the report in 2006. After accepting the expert report, government formalized the promulgation of the act in 2013. On 2013 onwards, farmer producer companies came into existence. It is almost 10 years now. Even after the experience of 10 years of time lapse, we don't find very fast growth of agricultural companies moving towards the global market. They are getting themselves organized. There are a lot of teething problems to get organized the farmers, because farmer natures are different, farming communities vary from place to place, region to region, and moreover, farmers are small farmers by and large, and organizing small farmers to produce to a larger market is somewhat a difficult task. However, is even now or still the producer companies are trying to organize the farmers to organize the structure of the companies. That's all. They have not moved towards the export market of the agricultural produce. This is what is happening so far. So under this context, we have to see what a farmer should do, what a farming is when we look at the farming as a cater to the global demand, because only when we change the farming towards the global market, we can bring in export income to the Indian community or the farming community. That is why for that we have to change the farming structure towards the export oriented one. Because when we look at this thing, how farming is done in foreign countries, and what are the products that are possible to export from India to foreign countries, all these things we have to evaluate. Moreover, to how an Indian farmer can get involved into the exporting of the commodities. Is it that easy, or what kind of risks are there? Or is it possible for small and marginal farmers to get into the global market, foreign market? All these things have to be studied. There are agencies which can help or assist the promotion of agriculture producers like APIDA. APIDA is assisting Indian farmers to promote agriculture produce to foreign countries. But the rules and regulations, the what kind of initiative farmer has to take, all these things are not very familiar with the farmers. That is only regulating or assisting organization. Under such circumstances, a farmer must understand what is a global market, how a farmer has to look at the Indian foreign market. This is what we have to see. When we look at the foreign market, what are the kinds of Indian commodities are being exported at present? Though variety of Indian agricultural producers are there, India is exporting only rice varieties to the foreign countries, and by and large it is only basmati rice. Basmati, nearly 40% of the global rice trade is by the Indian market, and of the total exporting of the rice, nearly basmati is the major shareholder. Or non-basmati rice is a minimum quantity only, because non-basmati rice is consumed by the local market. Basmati rice is in demand to the European market, developed countries, and Middle East countries, and they get a premium price for that produce. And Basmati rice is produced in the Punjab, Haryana area only, northern India, where that kind of aroma is getting in that rice. That variety is mostly cultivated in that area. Pakistan is a major competitor for the basmati rice to India in export to the basmati rice. With all these things, India is getting towards the exporting of the rice, particularly basmati, to the global market. So when we look at this, only one section of the farmers are able to export to the Indian global market, whereas the rest of the Indian agriculturists or farmers are not able to go to the foreign market, exporting to foreign market. So what are non-basmati varieties means? Firstly, say it is IR64, IR36, few long slender varieties, boiled rice, raw rice, or boiled rice. These kind of specifications are there in the case of non-basmati rice. And non-basmati rice is mostly exported to some African countries, Nepal, Bangladesh kind of places. Sri Lanka kind of things, where rice is more staple food. So all these things show us we want to may produce a agricultural commodities as rice as a exporting commodity. What kind of rice we have to produce? This thing we have to study. This an ordinary farmer cannot study this global market demand. Moreover, India was fixing a minimum price for the globalization, exporting of the basmati rice in 2022. Even it lifted that minimum price because to compete with the global market, so that farmers can export to the according to the competitive prices there. These things, regulations are there to help the farmers to move towards the global market. So when non-basmati rice is in demand, we have to identify what kind of rice is produced. Long slanted rice is in demand. That is equivalent to IR64. Which variety is in demand? So if we want to export rice to the foreign market, we have to recommend that kind of varieties in the Indian market. That is a production based thing. Other than that, it is going on a lot of stringent license policies, because residues of sense and it is an organic product. All the certifications have to be obtained before exporting to the global market, because poison-free certificate or traces of pesticides residues should be obtained before exporting to the export market. So all these things we must educate farmers when they are orienting their production towards agricultural export market. They must be aware that their produce must be chemical free, poison free, and mostly they should be produced in an organic way of cultivation. Then only it will not get rejected at the time of clearing the export. So all these informations a farmer should be given. Otherwise, an ordinary farmer cannot understand all these things. That is why when we say the farming at a globalization context, the global market expects the farming in a particular way. It must be produced a chemical-free, poison-free way, organic method of cultivation. Only few varieties are in demand. All these informations must be fed to the farmers, and the farmers should move towards that kind of farming methods. So all these seeds must be made available to them, and a poison-free method of agricultural farming should be introduced to them, so that it can be procured for the export market. These informations must be given to farmers. So for all these things, farmers must understand while producing their rice or any other commodity. So far Indian farmers are producing for the local demand according to the season. Because says vagaries of seasonality and compel the farmers to choose the variety according to the availability of water sources. Okay, because what variety of seed they should go for, and what is the period of time they will get irrigation for their paddy crop. All these things are the major constraint for the farmers. So they are not looking into the export demand oriented varieties. So that this is the realism of the farmers producing to various varieties of agricultural things. So looking at this seasonality of the agriculture and the water source availability for the paddy production, and requirement of the paddy seeds that is suitable for the export market, all these things should be analyzed by some external agency, and it must be made available to the farming community, so that farmers will be able to move towards the export orientation of their agriculture. Otherwise, they will stick to the local market only, or they will produce only for the local demand and according to the local seeds availability, which caters to the local demand. These things a farmer must understand. When we want to change the farming towards a global market, we must educate the farmers all these requirements, the certification requirements, variety requirements, the quantity requirements. All these things must be made available to the farmers. They orient the farming methods towards the global market. These things are the essential things a farmer must understand, and farming methods should change towards that towards the global market. These things we must understand in our global market scenario. So apart from this, when we look at so far we have when we look at the export of the market, again, who are the major competitor to the rice exporting? When you see the Vietnam, Thailand kind of countries are the major exporter of the rice. And when we look at who are the major importers of the rice, Middle East countries, European countries, America, all these countries, Australia, all these countries are importers of rice. But when we look at the varieties, European countries and America, Australian countries go for the basmati or aromatic rice. Only non-aromatic rice is going to the Nepal kind of Sri Lanka, Nepal, or Bangladesh to some extent. All these countries import non-basmati rices. So all these things we must understand. So when we orient our rice production towards the global market, to which country we are focusing, what is their importing practices, what is the price availability, how much they can export to these countries, how much margin we can get, all these things must be studied by an external agency and make the information available to the farming community. These things are major issues we have to see. And again, when we look at the quantity of the export, it is mostly in the export is going towards in container, bulk quantities are exported. So a ordinary farmer cannot export a bulk quantity. Only again a trader comes in the picture and he procures the paddy from the large number of farmers, and according to the requirement he is exporting to the foreign demand. As far as possible, he has to procure the same variety of paddy and then process them and then get the required certificate for the processing, and then lab test all these things, and he has to export to the foreign countries in the large quantity. So these are the things small farmers cannot reach to the global market. So if this is the condition, how can a farmer move towards the global market? This is the question before us. So in this context, we have to look at the impact of the globalization in India. That is, what I mean here is when we agreed to global market and signed in the treaty, and even after nearly 20 years of that travel, we find Indian markets are not, Indian consumers or Indian agriculture producers are not aware of the global market demand. Whereas at the same time, when we look at the impact of the globalization in India, we have seen the extraordinary development in the mobile phone development and the banking sector and the automobile industries. And all the countries which are producing mobiles are penetrating into the Indian market, and each and every Indian citizen is mobile and telephone phone network with him. So far, so that is how a mobile phone producer or mobile network producer is enlarging their demand market in Indian context. So every Indian is able to use a mobile phone, automobiles, or advanced banking system for the conveniences. So when foreign countries are able to penetrate into the Indian market with their products, Indian consumers of those products are able to adopt to those products. They are able to do a successful business in India. if you look at the Indian condition, to that much importance we have not given to agricultural produce and the agricultural producers. So we agricultural producers and foreign consumers are not in the mind of the companies or export promoting agencies or Indian farmers. This is where we have to look into. So, if we have to tap the foreign market, we must look at the food habits of the foreign countries. Food habits change from country to country. What kind of, is it possible to import directly to the consumers, or we have to export only to the departmental stores and then they have to redistribute to the consumers? All these questions we have to see. When we look at these things, China kind of countries are, though they are a rice producing country, they are also a major rice importing country, but they import rice in bulk quantities. When we want to export to the Chinese market, we have to export rice into the container only. But if you want to tap to the direct consumer market of the foreign nationals, even farmers can directly use the social media like Flipkart, Amazon, kind of social media, and try to sell their produce directly to the consumers. This is also possible. In this case, they can go for small quantities, whereas here the profit margin of Indian farmers may be less, but they directly move to the foreign market. This is the advantage of that. But the middlemen get a major share in the profit. However, the other side of it is Indian agriculture produce like basmati rice or mango or any other Indian commodity is able to reach foreign consumers directly. This quantity is less, profit may be less, but what is happening here? A foreign national or the food consumers in the foreign countries are able to taste the Indian agricultural commodities market. So that if it is a rice or millets or fruits, banana or mangoes or coconuts, all these kinds, if we want to export to the directly to the export market, a farmer can change their produce into a consumable commodity according to the requirement of particular country demand and then export to that country consumer directly. For this thing, what is required is we have to convert this product according to the requirement of the consumer. The requirement of the consumer is ready-to-eat form or packaged form or non-perishable form. These are the things we have to process this produce into a non-perishable thing, a tinned food or poison-free items are specifically Indian origin products like that, so that a specific demand is created for the Indian commodities in the foreign markets directly to the consumers, directly among the consumers. That will generate a demand for the Indian agricultural commodities. These methods should be bring into focus, because though we see Amazon, Flipkart kind of things is encouraging individual exported by few farmers, and a majority of the farmers adopt to these conditions, these exporting marketing conditions, they are able to reach their foreign consumers directly. In that case, every farmer can understand the demand for their produce in the foreign market. So they can go for a larger quantity of production, seasonality of the production, and processing according to the requirement of the foreign one. All these things are focusing towards the marketing agricultural produce to a foreign market. So this is in a way helpful to popularize the Indian agricultural commodities to the foreign market. These things, Indian agriculture APIDA kind of institutions which try to promote agricultural commodities in foreign market must study these things where there is a demand for the agricultural produce. They have to go for different kind of agreements, liberalization policies, liberalization of import certificates, kind of things with various countries who are major importers of the Indian commodities. Here, government side initiatives are the institutions which are promoted for exporting agricultural commodities should focus on these aspects to liberalize the conditions for exporting bulk export of the commodities. These are the institutions look into the factors here and then encourage farmers to go for the export market. Again, if we have to mobilize the small farmers to major level, then again we need some nodal agency to procure the agricultural produce from the same homogeneous produce for the different small farmers and process according to the requirement of the export market. These must be taken by the either trader or agricultural producer companies or some institutions doing a successful processing and packaging functions to the farming communities. If it is on the commercial basis, if some processing units promoted by the government and packaging industries promoted by the government and do this job for the Indian consumers, Indian producers, they can export to the foreign market. This kind of coordination is required when we want to export to the foreign market. These are the things we have to look at the Indian farm system. So when we want to change the farming towards the globalization, orientation is thoroughly required because method of production is required, what kind of commodities are required should be studied, how should the agricultural produce should be processed to the ready-to-eat form of the foreign consumer. So the Indian farmers can mobilize their production in a consolidated way and process them and export towards a global market. All these things compel the farmers to understand the global market as well as adopt towards a globalization of the farming techniques. Again, when we look at what is happening into the farming methods into the other countries who are exporting agricultural produce to the global market. Even a small countries like Scandinavian countries, they are producing large quantities of vegetables to the global market, even though the climatic condition is adverse for the agricultural produce. Still, they are going for green shade cultivation kind of methods, and they are trying to cater to the major export, major food exporting sector. Whereas in other countries like Philippines or Thailand or Cambodia, all these countries which are tropical in nature, they are exporting a lot of coconut-based products to the export market. They convert their produce into the market-oriented products, because even if we want to export tender coconut to the foreign demand, they process the tender coconut in such a way that easily packed, when it is opened, it is immediately consumed by the buyer. This kind of processing is being taken in the other countries of agricultural exporting countries. Whereas in India, such kind of marketing technologies or strategies or processings are not taking place for the Indian consumers. Still, we are only saying we can able to say, since we are an agricultural country, we are having a variety of agricultural process. We can cater to all kinds of food demand. We can thrust on the global market. But in what form? In the agricultural produce should be converted into the readily consumable thing is still not known to the Indian farmers. This we have to bring out a detailed study of the processing technologies and packing technologies and country-wise conversion of the agricultural produce into the ready-to cooking form or ready-to-eat form or tinned packaged food form according to the requirement. We have to convert this agricultural produce and then export to the demand, foreign demand. This can add to the value addition, because only when we convert our agricultural produce to these kinds of changes, we can expect a higher price for our commodities. Otherwise, we cannot expect a very high price for our produce as such. This is what Indian farmers should understand. This is what Indian authorities should understand, how to educate Indian farmers towards a global market. Because we cannot all on a sudden convert the farmers to a global market. We have to study thoroughly how Indian farming activities should be focused towards a global market. Which are the commodities we can export? In what form they should be processed and converted? Whether it can be exported by the individual farmer or by the group of farmers through some nodal agency. All these things should be studied and should be educated by these institutions, the farmers. There are a lot of financial constraints there, technological constraints there, and regulation constraints are regarding the importers, insurance formalities are there. All these things Indian farmers are not aware of. All these knowledges must be given to the Indian farmers. What are the things Indian farmers must, how the banking system Indian farmer understand, what are the things he has to understand, how the sample has to be produced, how the sample should be sent and get approved, how is the logistics of packing, exporting to the foreign countries. The development of logistic support is very, very important in the exporting of the agricultural produce by the farmers. These things are still at the beginning stage only. The logistic support of the exporting of the agricultural produce is the very initial stage. A farmer is not at all able to reach that level, reach that services. These things we have to study. So when we want to move our Indian agriculture towards a global market, these are the missing gaps we have to identify. Because all the things we cannot expect a farmer should understand and go for the exporting. Similarly, the farming cannot be changed towards a global farming technologies all on a sudden. Bridging these things are very, very important thing. Government or specific nodal agencies and processing industries, banking sector, insurance sector, logistic industries, services, all these things should be clubbed together, and for each and every component of things, these institutions should play the role to improve their conditions, to educate their Indian farming community. Then only Indian farmers can understand all these things. So this is in a small scale promoted by the e-commerce methods and e-nom methods and all these things. Now in a small way it is being introduced, online sales, all these kinds of introductions are there, but very educated farmers or a higher level of farmers who are able to understand all these things are able to get into this processes. An ordinary farmer is not able to understand or get into this kind of methods of change. So we have to see, we have to convert each and every farmer into the to get into the global market. Like how some 20-25 years before, communication is a rare thing, telephone is a sophisticated in any Indian market. Now look at that. When Android phone is introduced, each and every individual is having one or two Android phones, two or three network connections. That means it is improving the quality of life, human resources. It is convenient for the individuals who are using that. All the benefits are there. What I'm trying to say here is an Indian farmer, whether rich or poor, is able to shell out around 1,000 to 2,000 rupees on recharging the SIMs, buying about 10,000 rupees in buying a Android phone in every 4 or 5 years. This is increasing their market, whereas our Indian customers are adopting to those things. In one way, it is improving the human resources, human capital, the quality of life, all the improvements due to this technological advancement is there, it is acceptable. Similarly, all these devices, gadgets must be familiar for the Indian customers in an agriculture produce to move towards that, to use those gadgets. So even if you use all these Android phones or PCs and things, if the mobile network is not well established now, still network problem is there. Net connection is getting net connection to each nook and corner places are there. Only in cities and main places we are able to get network connection. In remote areas, still network connection is still a problem. So all these improvements are not have to be addressed by the government departments. So when the last 90s to 20s, in the last 30 years of time, the impact of globalization, foreign countries have taken the global market to a very high level for their products to the Indian market, whereas our Indian government or authorities or planners or policymakers are not addressing these issues to advise or support our Indian communities to export their product to the global market. This is, I find a gap of the globalization here, because our Indian communities, our Indian government, or policymakers, or banking institutions, or finance institutions who can support the Indian exporters, insurance companies, all these things have not traveled much to support the Indian farmers, so that Indian farmers are not that much rest assured of their risk, because whenever they think the risk plays a major role in understanding all these things, and they are still, Indian farmers are shrinking and they are not looking into the global market. When we want our Indian farmers addressed to a global market, global demand, the government institutions who are nodal agencies to promote the agricultural produce to the global demand have to address all these crisis issues: banking side, insurance side, marketing side, and processing side, logistic side. All the things must be improved and made the farmers easily access all these things to export their produce. These are the things. On the one side, farming method should be oriented towards export market, and the production support must be given by the government and nodal agencies, and farmers should understand there is a gain in this produce, and we must do our farming towards those in this kind of commodities, like kind of confidence we must inculcate. These are the things we must see when look at the globalization of the Indian agriculture sector. Because though we are saying that India has signed the World Treaty Agreement and we are open to export to the global market, and in even the last 30 years, you only 2013, we are introducing farmer producer companies after a lapse of nearly 15 years. Even after introduction of more than 10 years, nearly 10 years, major producer companies are not orienting towards the exporting market. Similarly, APIDA or any other agencies are not understanding the practical problems of the exporting issues. So we have to selectively study the few products like banana, mango, millets, all these wheat or rice or coffee or which specific Indian produce is in demand in the global market. We have to look at that. In that case, when we look at it, there is a very good demand for the aromatic oils like ginger oil, cardamom oil. These kind of oils are used in the cooking for the international community. It is in demand. They can be easily processed here and then sent into value as a value-added product, which will fetch a very good price. A farmer can easily convert a ginger into ginger oil and can be marketed there. Because in a global market, we have to identify the commodities, which are the commodities we can easily produce and cater to the global market. These things and Indian and the nodal agencies must thoroughly understand other than conventional products like paddy or wheat or mango, all these things, what are the new kinds of agricultural products which India can produce and easily export and fetch a good price. Because ginger oil is one thing. Similarly, corn oil, maize oil is another thing. Maize is by large produced for the animal feed nowadays into the Indian market or foreign market. There is a demand for the corn oil. Corn oil is used in the cooking sector as well as for the industrial purposes. So there is also for the other demand, industrial demand is there for the corn oil. India can produce a large quantity of corns easily in India, because there is also, when we look at the different kinds of agricultural produce, global market is demanding non-GMO product and organic products, because organic products, non-GMO agricultural produce are easily acceptable to the foreign demand. Whereas in India, we can easily produce those millets, maize, ginger, all these variety things easily, and they convert into the processed food and sent to the foreign market. These kinds of studies must be done in India by specialized institutions, and then educate our farmers towards a conversion of agricultural produce to the consumable, easily acceptable produce of the foreign consumers. These things are essential things the Indian government must, when orient different policy frames, what kind of thrust must be given to the academic institutions or export promotion agencies, and government must frame their policies to convert the agricultural produce towards such product which can easily exportable with a very high margin. These things a government should thoroughly study, or the nodal agencies must take these things into the hand and educate the Indian farmers. These are the things I come across with the things when I personally do my research. Similarly, there is a large demand for the millets. Millets are in demand for the sake of their nutritional value, because similarly there is a very good demand for the protein, other that is plant protein demand in the foreign market, because protein is available to the foreign market by the protein is available to the foreign consumers from the animal protein only. It is not available to them. It is not available to them from the plant protein. So when we encourage plant protein through promotion of the pulses or converting pulses into plant protein products, powder form or any consumable form, it is easily marketable. Similar, fiber enriched millets can be exported. Similarly, banana and mangoes can be easily exported to the foreign market. Some companies, expect a processed food. Some countries expect a raw, fresh fruits. These things we must identify how we can enhance the shelf life of mangoes or banana to the fresh fruits market demand, and then send directly to the foreign demand. How to improve the logistics to quick transportation of that perishable commodities, we must look into. In the case of processing industries, we have to. One second. In the case of processing industries, we have to look at what kind of products are produced required by the foreign demand. All these things should be addressed by the concerned institutions, and they should educate the Indian farmers. These are the things we come across here when we study how can we improve the Indian market, how can we improve the. One second. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, somehow I lost my screen. Okay, let me restore it. Yeah, so, okay. Like that, when we orient our agricultural farmers towards a new kind of farming technologies, processing methods, understanding a foreign demand, converting the products into consumer expectations, all these things are informations still required by the Indian community. So all these things must be studied by the specialized institutions, academicians, and then it must be these information should be given to the farmers. This is the context I understand when you want to promote agriculture as a major exporting commodity in the Indian for the India, and the Indian farmers should get benefit out of it. These changes we must follow and bring into the Indian system. This is what I have identified through my observations, and with this I conclude my topic. If any questions you can ask, please. Hello? Okay, I think this will be much beneficial, or this must have thrown sufficient light to understand the global market of agricultural produce and how the global market should be understood by the Indian communities, Indian government, or export agencies, or other logistic organizations, banking sector, insurance companies. All these things must focus their orientation towards agriculture products exports, and then come closer to the farming community. Then only.
Yeah, Mr. Bhaskar, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sorry, I got network issue. That's why I could not answer you earlier. So, since we are running short of time, I'll take up some questions. I request you to answer them as soon as possible.
Please. Okay.
Yeah. So, the first question is, how can small-scale farmers compete in globalized agriculture market?
Yeah, that is that I told. They have to start using the social media. When we look at the social media, Flipkart or Amazon, all these things conduct specific marketing classes to the exporting people. So if I want to export a single commodity, whatever it may be, if you want to export a rice or wheat or some kind of product, they come organize some classes and give the packing materials, everything else, but they decide a price. They demand a price from us, and then we have to accept that. They get a huge margin, but we can directly sell the product to the consumers, because we have to produce and adhere to the packing norms, processing norms, and they will market our produces. This social media takes the Indian farmers directly to the foreign consumers. So advantage of this is consumer is directly comes in contact with the producer. This is important in my opinion, because a foreign consumer is able to test the Indian commodity and Indian producers product. This one-to-one contact is important in my opinion. Whereas when it is going towards a processor or middleman or a trader, the homogeneity of the produce will get lost. So if there is some error is there, that we cannot address where the lapse has happened. When a small farmer is addressing all these things, a consumer can explain clearly, taste the difference, happy to pay the price. Similarly, an exporter also will be happy to increase his production. So this helps them to have a strong foothold in the foreign market. Then traders or other communities enlarge their market in bulk quantities. This is a route I think we can take.
Okay. And what role do cooperatives play in helping farmers access global markets?
Cooperative movement is very good, but cooperative policies are not there, because it is still mobilizing the people. They just mobilize the number of members, that's all. That cooperative movement has not have an objective. They have policy frames, they have the direct exporting plan or strategies or market demand. Nothing is in their hand. They are just organizing the farmer sector for movement. But again, there is a lack. Somebody has to study the market. The cooperative movement so far organizing the farmers, that's all. They have not studied the market of the foreign consumers. These movements must study the market. The cooperative movement, it is other side. That is why what I expect here is only the nodal agencies. They must study the demand, because there are varieties of countries. Every country has had different kind of demand. So one cooperative movement cannot study the market demand. The APEDA kind of agencies must specifically study the foreign demand of the specific countries, specific commodities, specific processing. All these things must be studied by the academia or nodal agencies, APIDA kind of things, and that support must be given to cooperative societies. And these cooperative societies must mobilize the farmers and then encourage for the uniformity in production and processing, and then exporting to the exporting countries through these nodal agencies. This is how we must channelize the cooperative movement, I think.
Okay. And how can technology bridge the gap between local farmers and international buyers?
I could not get your point.
How can technology bridge the gap between local farmers and international buyers?
Technologies are many, you see. Technology, if you talk in the production process, small need a small kind of machineries, and for harvesting or cleaning or processing or converting the process is a different kind of technology. If you want to logistics, if you look at the packaging, it is a different kind of technology. How different laminated packages can be done, how the packaging ensures the shelf life of the produce, how those packing materials can be done is a different kind of technology. Similarly, logistics, if you concern, if you look at the technology, how the perishable things can be transported in the conditioned temperature conditions. This is a different technology. Like that, the technology, if you look at the technologies, we have to each and every stage we must understand the role of technology. Technology must handle a large quantity in a doable way. And a farmer should be easily able to handle these things. This should be, when a farmer understands the technology, we must again break up the technology into different compartments. According to the different requirements, the improvement in technology must be there. Similarly, the communication technology also we must have. When we look at Android phone kind of thing, a farmer should be able to immediately get the access to the demand situation or price situation or the processing thing, how quickly he has to act. All these kinds of informations should come to the farmer's hand through the communication technology. That means technology is wide here. So all these things must be improved here, and it is not a single thing we can address, because it must be improved in total. Okay.
Just two more questions I'll take because we don't have time.
Yeah.
What are the major challenges farmers face due to globalization?
Globalization is the export of is major important free foods and artificial. Because all non-GMO foods, organic products are easy to market. So Indian markets are still not aware of these things. Encourage organic production methods to the Indian farmers, so that easily they pass the lab test. The commodities will pass the lab test and easily they can export. So these things in the Indian production side, if you see, the production method must be poison free, chemical free, and residues, pesticides residues free things must be produced in this is concerned. So whereas in that export side, when you see, there are countries liberal in their export, like UAE countries of thing, they are liberal in import policies. We must encourage exporting to those first, and then foreign exchange from those countries. And whereas European Union or America or Australia kind of is very stringent import policies. So they have very strict certification process, and that is difficult to attain for the ordinary buyers, ordinary producers. So we must address such a market by a thoroughly organic producer companies. These kind of things we must distinguish the product itself and then try to export. These challenges this government alone can study this. And this government can through bilateral agreements deal for those countries to encourage Indian market, Indian commodities, and then bring in a favorable condition of exporting of the Indian commodities. Similarly, geographical identification of the Indian commodities must be encouraged, so that when we look at a particular commodity like mango, all things, a specific demand only exclusively from India only. These kinds must be there. Similarly, when we look at the rice varieties, only basmati is exported to the centered variety. When we look at the aromatic rices, there are a variety of non-basmati varieties are there. We must explore those varieties and try to export those varieties to the European market. So that they must understand it is not basmati alone, the other varieties are there which can also be adopted. These challenges must be studied and must be addressed. These things we must understand. I think governments should study all this.
Okay, so last question. How can government policies support farmers in adapting to global trade changes?
How
can government policies
government policies through
support farmers in
I got it. Because at every level, at the first point, they must have bilateral agreement with different nations to promote Indian agricultural commodities in those countries. Liberalizing their import licenses in those countries this is through bilateral agreements by the government. Second thing, supporting nodal agencies to study the domestic demand of for every country. What kind of agricultural commodities are required by each and every country? In what form they expect the
Hello, Mr. Baskaran? Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Please proceed.
Yeah, these government must look into this banking side, logistic side, insurance side, agriculture production side, everywhere government must look into the production side and the exporting side, licensing side, certification side. Government simplify the process so that agricultural producers can be promoted.
Okay.
There are different areas.
Okay, one last question. What successful examples exist of farmers benefiting from globalization?
Successful farming. Successful farming or product, if we see product, mango is one of the things which is exclusively demand from the Indian side. Banana we can go. If you look at the product, I think I must say I understand we can go for fodder improvement, because maize can be produced for the corn, maize oil as well as for fodder. There are from a single commodity we can cater to the 3 different exporting commodities. Fodder can be developed, maize millets can be developed, maize oil can be developed. So we have to identify the vast scope available for a produce. We must understand which is universal, which is throughout India. can produce maize. We can concentrate on maize, promote for the maize production, and then give a thrust to the particular commodity, so that all the farmers can move towards that. Export market can be obtained from different products, either fodder or millet or as a oil. These kinds of things the government must study and encourage.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Baskaran. So now we have come to end of question round. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we'd like to thank you for the detailed talk and answering all the questions. And so we'll be closing this meeting now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we conclude this.
Yes, we'll close this.
Yeah.